are true. That is, if you first of all apply h on some element in Z, which will give us an ordered pair, because h is a map that maps Z into x cross y, so we will have an ordered pair. Then you collect the first coordinate of that ordered pair. That will be the same thing if you apply f to that same element in Z, and a similar thing with G. So let us see the solution. It looks very difficult, sounds very difficult, but the solution and the concepts are not that difficult once you get the point. So first of all, we have to prove that one such function exists. You understand that there are two parts of this proof or this solution. You have to first of all prove that a function h exists which satisfies these two conditions. Then additionally you have to prove that such a function is unique. There can be only one such h. So let us prove the existence first. So to prove existence, the only way is to go, in this situation, is to actually define some h. We define h from Z into x cross y by this formula. H of Z, where Z is some element in Z, is equal to f of Z comma g of Z. Let us take a moment to understand what we have done here. We are supposed to define a function like this. So we have to say what it does to the elements of Z. So we have taken an arbitrary element small z or small z. The image of this under the function h, according to us, according to our definition, is this ordered pair. Now elements in x cross y are ordered pairs by definition, so that is okay. We are having an ordered pair. The first component is f of z, the second component is g of z. But what is happening is f of z in x? Yes, it is in x, because f is given to be a function from z to x. So z is any element, f will take that element to some element in x. So f of z is in x. Like that, since g is a function from z to y, this element also belongs to y. And since f and g are well defined functions, so these images fz and gz for that given z are both unique. As a result, this ordered pair that we are getting by applying h on z is itself unique, and that's why h is well defined. Although we are not going to say so many things here, we are just simply going to mention this. Since f from z to x and g from z to probably I shouldn't say z, that's an American thing. G from z to y are well defined. H is well defined. Okay. Keep in mind that whenever a function, you are defining a function, after defining that function you have to always see or demonstrate its well definedness. If it is something very easy, it has been defined in terms of some other well defined function, and its own well definedness follows easily from that, Sometimes it's not necessary to mention that it's well defined, it's almost obvious, but at other times if there is a possibility of confusion, then you have to show that the function is well defined. In this case it's somewhere in the middle. We know f and g are well defined, and from that well definedness of h is coming, so it's just a question of mentioning. However, sometimes you have to actually show that it's well defined, that is an entirely different thing. Okay, that is not needed here at least. Okay, now for this h, whether these two equations are satisfied, let us see. Let z belongs to capital Z, then this function composition h, we are applying this on Z. Okay, and we will see whether this turns out to be equal to f of z, because then its value and the value of f at z will be equal, so basically the functions will be equal. By the definition of composition, this is what? This of h of z, and this is equal to pi x cross y to x. What is h of z? H of z is this. Now what does this projection map do? It maps every ordered pair into its first component, because it maps into x. So this ordered pair will be mapped into its first component, which is f of z. So you see that the value of this composition at z is the same as its value at f of z, just like that. And now you can probably understand why I was saying that these things are easy, only they look rather difficult. We do the same thing or the similar thing with the other projection map. H of z, this is equal to pi x cross y to y f of z comma g of z. So this maps the ordered pair into its second component. So z was any element in z, so this the same is true for all such choices of z. So these two functions are also equal. Hence composition H is equal to F, and this composition H is equal to G. So we have proved that such a function H exists. Now we have to prove that H is unique. Next, let K from Z to X cross Y be a function that also satisfies these two equations. Pi x cross y to x composition K is equal to F and pi x cross y to y composition H is equal to G. Our aim now is to show that K is actually equal to H. That will prove uniqueness of H. So for that we have to just show, see already k and h are both functions having domains z and range x cross y. So now what is needed is to show that they map the same elements of z into identical elements. So we take any element of z. Then okay, so all we can do is we can apply the function k on z. That however we cannot do directly. We have to take the help of these equations because these are the only ones or the only things we know about k. Then pi x cross y to x composition k is equal to f of we have to apply this on z is equal to f of z because these two functions are equal, so they will have equal images for the same element. Now this turns out to be equal to what? Pi x cross y to x k of z is equal to f of z. And similarly from the second equation we will have this. So now note one thing, since k is mapping z into x cross y, this k of z is actually an ordered pair in x cross y. So it will have a first component and a second component. And because these maps, this map maps any such ordered pair into its first component and this map maps any ordered pair into its second component. So the first component of k of z is f of z and the second component of k of z is g of z. And we are going to write that so that later when you look at these solutions you don't get confused. Since the range of k is x cross y, we have k of z belongs to x cross y. That means it's an ordered pair in x cross y. The last two equations imply k of z is equal to f of z comma g of z. But we already know that this is equal to nothing but h of z, since h of z is also equal to this. So we have k of z is equal to h of z. This implies k is equal to h. That is a function from z into x cross y that satisfies these two equations is unique, this equation and this equation, that is h itself. H is only one such function, and because of the uniqueness of h, we were able to give it a name, namely direct sum of f and g. So whenever you encounter something like this, you know that f and g are functions from z into x and z into y respectively, then f, you know what f plus g is, that is the function h. So they help us combine two functions having different ranges into a single function. So here this solution ends. Okay, then we move on to the next one. Again we come back to sets, and okay, this is not that difficult. Anyway, let x1 x2 up to xn be sets. Show that the Cartesian product xi, as I varies from 1 to n, is empty if and only if at least one of the xi is empty. Okay, by definition the Cartesian product of these sets is equal to the set of all ordered n tuples xi, where I varies from 1 to n, belonging to this set, provided xi belongs to xi for all I lying between 1 and n, where A is the set of all natural numbers starting from 1 and ending at n, and B is the union of all the xi's. So you can see that if at least one of these sets is empty, then this condition that the ith component of this n tuple belong to that set will not be satisfied for any n tuple. So if at least one xi is empty, then no n tuple satisfies the conditions for belonging to this set, so that the set is empty. Hence, if at least one xi is empty, then the Cartesian product is also empty. What is the converse? If the Cartesian product is empty, then at least one of the sets is empty. And what is the contrapositive of the converse? If none of the sets is empty, that is, if all the sets are non-empty, then the Cartesian product is also non-empty, and that is we have already proved that, and we have proved that in lemma 3.5.12. So we just mentioned like this: the converse is taken care of by lemma 3.5.12. Okay. Now after this we have an exercise that involves the concept of graph of a function. Because we are dealing with arbitrary functions, so the graph will also be arbitrary. It cannot be drawn, but nevertheless it can be defined, and it's a set. So we will see that now. So here